Hey friends, welcome back to the Godspeed Garage. We are finally back on the 383 stroker, and it's the best part of engine building. It's assembly time. So now this is the way that I assemble these engines. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it, different orders and things like that. This is just the way that I do it. I have this whole checklist here just to make sure that I don't miss anything. Some of this stuff is going to change depending on the manufacturers of the parts you're using. This is the way I'm doing it. I hope this helps you out. Let's get into it. Now, the number one rule of engine building is it has to be clean. Sterile, clean environment, tools, parts, etc. We're going to be cleaning all of these parts as we install them. So the first thing we're going to do is install our piston rings. Now the ring gap is critical. As you remember, one of the pistons got blown out because they didn't gap the rings big enough for running this thing on pump gas. So you don't want your rings and all that stuff to heat up as you're running and butt together, because then they're going to go like this. So you want enough ring gap to prevent that blowout, but you also don't want too much ring gap, because then you're going to get blow by. Oil and stuff like that is going to go past your pistons. It's going to end up in your combustion chamber, and it's not going to be very efficient. So every manufacturer of all the pistons and piston rings have recommendations. You're going to want to consult your manufacturer to decide what is the best for your particular application. It also depends on if you're going to add a power booster, like a blower of some kind, or whoosh, whoosh, those thingies, nitrous maybe. There are different intended uses if you're going to use it for towing, if you're going to be drag racing it, the circle track kind of stuff. So according to the form that came with my pistons, I want to multiply my bore times this ring gap factor. And on this little chart here, for a street naturally aspirated engine, the ring end gap factor is 6.5 thousandths. So 4.03 times 0.0065 is 26 and some change. So I'm gonna actually round up just because I want a little bit more wiggle room. However, this instruction sheet does say for hypereutectic pistons, they don't expand as much as other type of pistons. So you can kind of run a little bit tighter, but maybe I got some PTSD. I don't know. I don't want these to blow out again like that happened to the last guy. The second ring, it's going to be your bore times 4 thousandths for a naturally aspirated engine. And so that math works out to about 16 thousandths and some change. So probably 17 thousandths. So I'll go on that one. And let's get filing. So before we start checking our piston rings and these piston bores, we want to spray some WD-40 on a rag and just give it a thin coat of film so these rings and the checker and all this stuff doesn't accidentally score the cylinder walls. Another important thing to note, these rings are extremely brittle, so be careful when you pull them apart, squeeze them together, because they will break, and if you break one, pretty much got to buy a whole new set and start all over again. You also want to make sure you clean these when you take them out of the package. So we'll just wipe it down with a rag soaked with mineral spirits. Now the top ring may or may not have a dot or literally the word top or some kind of a symbol on it. That indicates the top of the ring, which you want to be towards the top of the piston. Mine does not have the word top anywhere on here, on either side. The other thing you want to look out for is any chamfered side. If it's chamfered on one side and not the other side, that's an indicator of which side is up and which side is down. In this case, this doesn't indicate, there is no chamfer, so I'm just going to put it in this way. I am going to only grind on the left side, so that way I know that that is always on the left side when the thing is up, right? Yep, got it. So when you stick these in the hole, kind of squeeze them together just a little bit and put them in sideways, and then rotate it so that it goes down in there. Whenever you measure these, you're going to want to use feeler gauges, and you're also going to want this ring to be about an inch or so down in the hole. And they do make special tools for these. You can also use an old piston, just put some old rings in the bottom oil ring area, and it'll sink it down and square it up in the hole about an inch down. You want it to be square every time you measure it. So if you move it with your feeler gauge, re-square it and measure it again. I thought I kept some of my old pistons, but I couldn't find them. So I'm going to use one of my new pistons here and just be very careful not to jack it up. Just like that. Okay, so let's just get our feeler gauge and see if we can find a starting point. So let's start with 11s, because these go to 11. 11 goes in there pretty easy. So let's bump it up to lucky number 13. 13 doesn't quite go in there. You don't want to force it. I can feel it gets about maybe a quarter of the way and then stops. So let's try a 12. Okay, and 12 goes in there and you can feel there's some drag on it. So pretty safe to say this is probably a good starting point. Let me re-square it up in the bore just to double check and make sure. Yep, 12 goes in there. A little bit of resistance. So 12 is our starting point. Pop this out the same way we went in. So we'll go up, squeeze a little bit, and just pull it right out. Head over to the grinder. So you're gonna need to have a piston ring file of some kind. This is just a cheapy one I got probably from Summit or something. The biggest thing with this is you wanna take your time, slow and smooth, like my pitches and kickball. When you file these down, you wanna make sure that the top side is up, and you always wanna file towards the center of the ring. You wanna make sure it's flat, and hold it tight and grind away. Count your turns. That way you can measure, you can kind of gauge how much material is being taken off with each turn. And you want to sneak up on the number because you can't add material to it. That's 10 turns. Let's go measure that. Okay, so 13 feels pretty tight. So we're probably close to 13 or so. So those 10 light turns were about 1,000. So we got a long ways to go. It's a good idea to deburr these things so you don't get a false reading. Just give the edges a couple of light swipes with some sandpaper or a file, and it doesn't take much. Got my 26 here. A little tight, but that does go in there, and it grabs it. So actually I'm gonna call that good. That's pretty close to what it recommends. So top ring, piston 1, good. Now on to the second ring. You also want to keep track of which ring goes in which hole, because once you file them, it's specific to that particular hole. So you're going to want to label these, tape them, put them in a specific pile. Don't let your cat come grab it and run off with it or something. So here is the second piston, and as you can see on mine, it does say top. You can also see it is chamfered on the bottom side. So we want to make sure that we keep the top in the top as we're measuring it when we put it down the hole. So same thing, we're going to clean this off, put it in there, and get a starting point. Okay, so the 11 goes in there pretty easily. Let me square this, just to be sure it's square in the hole. The 13 goes in there too. Well, let's jump it up to 15. 15 goes in there. Some slight drag. Just for fun, let's try the 16. And the 16 goes in there. There is some drag on that 16, so you can just re-square it just to double check. Once again, it's a 16. It does go in there, and it's holding on to it, so it's pretty safe to say that those are 16. Now, do I want to grind it 1,000? Being as that number was so close to the number just straight out of the box, curiosity got the better of me. And I actually went and installed all of the second rings in all of the holes. And what I found was pretty interesting. Some of them were pretty tight on the 16. Some of them were a little loose on the 16. In fact, one was almost 18. So I think what I'm gonna do is go closer to that 17 mark, and the 18 will just kind of be a little bit loose from the 17. There's no harm in going bigger. Obviously you don't want to go too big, but according to our sheet here, if you have a turbo or any other kind of supercharger, power adder kind of thing, you multiply it times 5 thousandths instead of 4 thousandths. So 4.030 times 0.005 is 20 and some change. So it's kind of a range right there. That top ring, I'm gonna call it good at 26, just because this has got me kind of wondering about all the other ones too. I know I need to file the top ring. If I go a little bit bigger than 26, I got some wiggle room because I can get up to 27. So yeah, I'm gonna file these to 17-ish. Ready, go. Okay, and there we go. So the 17 goes in there, and there is a bit of drag on it. So I would say, I'm gonna call that good. On to the next ones. All right, now that we got all of our piston rings filed to perfection, exactly where I want them to be, now is the time we're gonna actually put them on the pistons themselves. And there is a certain order and an orientation that all of these rings have to go in. This is the orientation that's recommended for small block Chevys. Yours might be different. You wanna consult your piston manufacturer or an assembly book if you're doing like a Mopar or a Ford or something. Essentially, you don't want any of the ring gaps to be in the same place. So you're going to kind of stagger them a bit. Now, when you put these on the pistons, there are a bunch of different ways to do it. But remember, these piston rings are really fragile and you don't want to break any of them. So they actually do make piston ring expanders and they're worth the investment. I happen to find this one at a yard sale for like $1. So you can find them at a swap meet pretty cheap, just to be on the safe side so you don't run the risk of breaking these rings by twisting them. So we're going to go in order, starting with piston number 1. You're going to want to make sure that you chalk it up into a vise, just kind of makes it easier to keep it in position. This is the front of the engine here to the left. So I want to keep that in mind. Okay, so front of the engine there. So first thing we're going to do is install our oil ring expander. And according to the diagram, this butt has to be in the range of about 11 to 1 o'clock. So I'm going to put it about 11 o'clock right here. And I don't know that it matters, but our diagram says that the butt goes to the top of the piston, so something like this. And these aren't that brittle, so you can use the spiral technique. Just kind of get it in there, and there you go, boom. Next thing is our oil ring rails, and there's 2 of them, a top and a bottom. We're gonna wipe these down because they're covered with oil from the manufacturer. And then once again, according to our diagram, the bottom ring rail goes in the 8 o'clock position, somewhere in there, 7 or 8. And again, these will do the spiral technique. So I want to start right about there and we'll work it around, keeping it underneath that oil ring expander. You want to be careful when we get to the end here to kind of pull it down. That way it doesn't scratch your piston. Just like so. As long as it's confirmed to be on the bottom side. There we go. And then the top side, once again, we'll give it a wipe down. And on this one, the gap is going to be in about the 4 to 5 o'clock position here. So we'll start there and spiral it around, making sure it's on top of this expander. There you go. And again, kind of make sure it doesn't scratch your piston, just like so. Next, we'll install our second compression ring, which again, if you remember on mine, it does say top and it is chamfered on the bottom side of it. This one, we're gonna wanna put directly in the 6 o'clock position, so that gap will be right there. And I'm gonna use my ring expander tool thing. Careful you don't launch it. Stay. There it goes. Well, kinda, sorta. There we go. There we go. Get in your home. Are you too good for your home? There we go. Keep that in the 6 o'clock position. Top ring, remember the side we filed is gonna be on the left when this is up, like so. This one is gonna have the gap at the 12 o'clock position. So once again, I'll just give it a wipe down, put it in my little expander tool, like so. As I spread it like so. And then, oh, get back here. Caught it with my foot, good catch. That one actually went on pretty easy. A little too easy, actually. There we go. All right, so now those are all on there. And before we install this in the engine and put our ring compressor on there, we will verify that all of these rings are oriented properly. So this one's good. Now I just got to do all the other ones. All right, well, I got all the rings on all of the pistons. They're all good to go. They're all clean. They're all organized. They're all ready to be installed. Before I do that, though, I do have a couple of other customization things I'm going to do, and you're not going to want to miss it. So be sure you subscribe, follow along, so you know when the next video comes out. While you're at it, hit that like button, leave a comment, share with your friends. It does help me out, and it's absolutely free, so thanks for doing that. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to get yourself a t-shirt over here. Check out the social medias down here, and I'll see you on the next one.